There are questions your data warehouse wasn't built for. Relationships that are inherent in your tables aren't always accessible or easy to visualize as rows and columns. Virtual Graph changes that. It brings the power of graph queries and graph visualization directly to your existing data warehouse. No pipelines, no copying data, no disruption. Your data stays exactly where it is. In this demo, we'll use Neo4j Virtual Graph to explore the upcoming FIFA World Cup. We'll look at which club teams are contributing the most players to national squads and which training ground friendships are about to become knockout stage rivalries. We start with the Snowflake platform. We've got our World Cup data tables such as club table, national team table, player table, as well as the relational tables which tie them together. Let's get a better look at what data we currently have in Snowflake and how they relate to each other. We can see our player table, which has player ID, as well as our relational table, rel player club, which has player ID and club ID, which links to our club table. Let's switch back to our data preview. We can see club ID, club name, as well as the national team table, which has our team ID, team name, confederation, and World Cup group. If we dive into our player table, we can see player ID, as well as the player name, position they have, age, and caps and nationality. To get started with Neo4j Virtual Graph, we first need to run OpenSSL in our terminal to get private and public keys which authenticate the connections between Neo4j Aura and Snowflake. Once we have these two keys, we create a new user with RSA public key equal to the public key we just generated. We also need to grant usage on our warehouse to the default role public, and make sure the database and schema also have usage to our default role. Inside Neo4j Aura, we can see a tab under Instances to create virtual graphs. I'll create a new virtual graph and connect it to Snowflake. We give our virtual graph a name, select our cloud provider and region information, select what size memory instance to use, and then connect to data source by clicking Add New Data Source. We select Snowflake and then proceed to fill out the name fields and credentials, including the user we created with the public key, as well as using the private key we generated for authentication. One quick note, if you see a 400 schema error not found, it's a permissions issue and can be fixed in Snowflake by granting usage on schema and warehouse to your default role. The connection was successful. No data is moved. Now Virtual Graph is reading directly from Snowflake. The tables in our database and schema are populated to the right. We can see the tables as well as the column names inside them. We click Confirm to proceed to the next step. We return to the configuration screen and now see the Snowflake connection available in the dropdown. Since we are just starting, we will create a new graph model and click Next, although if you already have an existing graph model, you could use that too. We have the ability to define our graph model manually, generate it from the schema directly, or generate it with AI. On the left-hand side, we see what tables are available via our connector. Let's use GenAI to produce our graph model automatically. GenAI is able to understand the table structure and produce a robust graph model with a single click. While a great starting point, we can still easily adjust the model and names if our domain knowledge shows connections that AI missed. In this case, we know players also play for clubs, and so we'll add that relationship here. We also need to consider the property mapping, and so we can use our table, rel player club, and then map player ID to the correct column in the table, as well as club ID to the correct column. Now we can see a check mark which indicates that the relationship was successfully imported. Lastly, let's update the relationship for player and national team to reflect our naming convention for player and club team. With the graph model set, Neo4j now has everything it needs to read directly from Snowflake. Let's create Virtual Graph and get started. With the graph model set, we are given credentials to access our instance. Let's download these and save them somewhere later for reference. The Neo4j Virtual Graph will take a little time to create and spin up. If it reaches a point where you get an error about it not being healthy in time, give it a little more time and it should turn green and say running. Once we get there, we're able to connect to it by going over to the drop-down menu, clicking connect, and we're going to go ahead and query our database. Here, we paste the credentials we saved during the creation step and connect. Now we are in our virtual graph. Let's go ahead and sample our data so we can get a look at what it looks like as a graph. Here we're looking at 100 paths randomly chosen. We can see things like our national teams and what World Cup groups they are associated with. We can also see players associated with player stats. Let's find every player connected to Arsenal and which national team they represent. There it is, Arsenal at the center, Saka connected to England, Saliba connected to France, Marino connected to Spain. One club, 3 nations, 1 tournament. Under the hood, Virtual Graph is translating this into SQL and streaming the results back from Snowflake. Now the interesting part. I want to find every club where teammates are playing for opposing nations. The club civil wars of the World Cup. And here it is. Every club in the middle, players branching out to opposing national teams on either side. Garnacho and Rashford, Manchester United teammates, one wearing Argentina, one wearing England. Real Madrid players spread across England, France, and beyond. These are the traversals your data warehouse couldn't show you. The connections were always in the data, now you can see them. And there you have it, graph-powered insights without disrupting your existing data infrastructure. No ETL pipelines, no copying data across systems. You start seeing value in minutes, not months. The best part? It plugs directly into the world's leading graph intelligence platform, Neo4j.